email us, send us a private message if you have any questions, things of that sort. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. A quick agenda, we'll do welcome and introductions. You'll learn what a beginning farmer rancher actually is by USDA standards. We'll do some quick overviews of programs within the Farm Service Agency, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, Rural Development, and the Risk Management Agency. And then we'll also go through some important deadlines and dates, and then future webinars, and then any questions, if anyone has them, you're also welcome to drop them in the chat. So like I said, my name's Liz Thomas. I work for the state office. I'm the Outreach and Communications Coordinator for the Farm Service Agency. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Cindy. Cindy, you're muted.
Thank you, Liz. That helps. Way to start the day off. Anyway, I'm Cindy Einsbar. I'm with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I am the outreach coordinator and beginning farmer and rancher for NRCS. My office is located at the Colorado State Office, and I have been a longtime NRCS employee and field person. So hopefully we can answer all your questions. I'll pass it on to the next person.
Oh, sorry, I'm working from home today, but my name's John Reddy. I work for Rural Development and looking forward to introduce a couple of programs for you. I actually work at the Alamosa field office, but we do cover the whole state, so there's no problem in reaching out to me or the people we have as contacts for the programs we're going to present.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Darrow. I'm the Deputy Director of the Topeka Regional Office of the USDA Risk Management Agency. We cover the states of Colorado, of course, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. Like everybody else on here, we're more than happy to answer any questions. I've got a contact card at the end of the presentation that I'll be using later. So if you do have questions specific to RMA, feel free to reach out and we will get you taken care of. Thank you.
I do see a question in the chat. Kara, it is being recorded. We can send it out through email. We have a couple different PDFs and things like that as well that we can also send out after the webinar. We're also planning on posting it on some of our websites so that you can send it to people, watch it later, etc. You're very welcome. Okay. So moving on here, thanks everyone for the introductions. Like I said before, we are so excited to be working collaboratively on this. The first couple things we wanted to go over is what is a beginning farmer rancher or a BFR by USDA standards. The first part is it's a person that has not primarily operated a farm or ranch for more than 10 years. So you could be working on a family farm, but you may not be the primary operator. Once you take over, if you haven't done it for more than 10 years, you could be considered a BFR. For some of the agencies, you also have to not have owned a farm or ranch that is greater than 30% of the average size in the county. So for example, if the average acreage of a farm is 100 acres, you can't own more than 30 acres within that county. You can work with your county offices to see if you qualify for a BFR, but on here we have a couple different ways that we can help our beginning farmer ranchers. Within the USDA, we have farm programs and farm loans. You can research both of them and look at what options you might have. We have some waived fees and things like that, depending on if you are a beginning farmer rancher. For NRCS, have you explored resource planning or conservation programs for your land? For rural development, have you researched value added opportunities or energy saving measures for your business? For RMA, do you need crop insurance? And then we also work with other agencies and local partners. You can look at CSU Extension or Colorado Department of Ag. They have some great resources that you can look at if you're just starting out or not really sure where to start. So for the Farm Service Agency, we specifically are a customer-driven agency. We have 37 farm program service centers that service all 64 counties of Colorado. And then we also have 9 farm loan service centers. The link shown at the bottom, you can go through and find your service center locator. This will be for all USDA service centers, RMA, RD, NRCS, and FSA. So you can kind of see your closest one. But within FSA, within our service centers, we really support all ag communities, and we also provide a variety of programs and services, ranging from farm programs, loans, commodity operations, and then also management and state operations. Some of the programs and services that we offer, we group them into 2 main areas. The first is farm programs. They range from disaster assistance, conservation programs, safety net programs, and risk management. We'll go through a couple of examples on the next slides. We also have a variety of farm loans. We have ownership and operating loans, microloans, loan guarantees. There are a bunch of different options in that area as well, based on your operation. So a couple of disaster assistance programs we have. These are our main ones that we see primarily in Colorado. Our non-insured crop disaster assistance program, or the acronym NAP, it provides financial assistance to producers of non-insurable crops that are primarily not insured by RMA. So if you have a crop in your county that is not insured by RMA, you may be able to get it insured by our NAP program. We also have our tree assistance program, also called TAP. We love our acronyms at the USDA. So if you get confused, we'll try and let you know what they stand for if we blow over it. But TAP provides financial assistance to eligible orchardists, nursery tree growers to replace and rehabilitate trees when lost to a natural disaster. Then we have a couple livestock ones. Our primary ones here are the Livestock Indemnity Program. This helps pay for death losses due to natural disasters. And then our Livestock Forage Program, which pays for grazing losses in a severe drought. Then we have our conservation program. Our main conservation program is called the Conservation Reserve Program. It's probably what we're most known for. We work really closely with NRCS to create a conservation plan. But if you enter in the CRP program, it pays a yearly rental payment in exchange for farmers removing environmentally sensitive land from ag production. If it's high to water erosion, soil erosion, etc., and then they have you plant it to something that'll improve the environmental quality, whether that's native grasses within the area, a pollinator, things of that sort. There are a couple different signups, and they all have different payments. They all have different criteria. So you can go ahead and look at those and see what might work best for you. Our 4 main ones are continuous CRP, general CRP, the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, also called CREP, and then CRP Grasslands, which is a working CRP program where you could have grazing on the land more than you normally would with some of the other CRP programs. And then we have some commodity and safety net programs as well. Also, one of our most known ones that most of our producers do annually is what we call our ARC PLC program. It's the Ag Risk and Price Loss program. They are technically 2 separate programs, but they are filled out on the same application, so don't get confused on that. The ARC program is an income support program, and it provides payments when an actual crop revenue declines below a specified guaranteed level. The PLC program provides income support payments when the effective price for a covered commodity falls below its effective reference price. You can work with your county offices to learn more specifics on some of these programs as well. So just keep that in mind. I know we're going through them pretty quick. Another safety net program we have is our marketing assistant loans, or MALs. These are a type of loan that provide interim financing at harvest if producers can't meet their cash flow needs, but they don't want to sell their commodities, usually because the prices are low during harvest time. We also have some farm storage facility loans, which provides low interest financing for producers to build or rehabilitate a transportation storage commodities. It could be a grain bin, it could be a storage truck. There are different eligible commodities that you can produce in here. After the loan is paid off, then that storage facility is yours to keep and use how you see fit. So a couple on farm loans. FSA is considered the lender of first opportunity. This means that we primarily help beginning farmer ranchers receive a loan if they can't get a loan from a traditional bank. If you're denied for not having enough income or a credit score, we primarily look at credit history. But the goal for FSA is to help you graduate into a traditional bank. So it's kind of your first stepping stone to get into loans. We have a ton of different types of loans. Our main two are direct loans and guaranteed loans. You can get operating and ownership loans in both types of loans. FSA's direct loan program is designed to help farmers start, purchase, expand, etc. And the loans are primarily funded by FSA and along with a guaranteed lender. And then you have your guaranteed loans where they are made, serviced, and fully funded by an ag lender, your local bank, farm credit, etc. These are often used to help lenders keep their current producers or their current customers, but you may have experienced setbacks, so the bank had to deny you. FSA will basically guarantee that, yep, they're going to pay this back. A couple other loans we have the down payment farm ownership loan, which is considered a direct loan. This one is specifically designed for beginning farmers or what we call socially disadvantaged producers, whether that's race, minority, gender, etc. This is a minimum of a 5% down payment with an interest rate of 1.5%, so very low. We also have microloans. They can be used for ownership or operating loans. They're limited to $50,000. They have a similar application process to a normal loan, but it's much simpler. And the last type of loans that I kind of want to talk about are youth loans. FSA can make low interest youth loans to establish, operate some sort of operation for the youth. It only goes up to $5,000 and it has to be used in some sort of capacity within the ag industry, along with an ag organization such as FFA or 4-H. This is a really neat online loan application tool. It's an interactive online step-by-step guide to help people look and see what kind of loan might fit best for their business needs and helping understand the application process. This last slide is mainly just links. It's more about programs and resources. This was a very condensed bit of what FSA offers, as most of our other agencies will also have. You can look at all of our fact sheets. We have so many programs that you can look through that'll fit your operation. We also have our beginning farmer rancher website, how to get started, fact sheets on what to include. We have our Colorado FSA specific website. So this is a website that I actually manage that gives you current information, current programs that are going on within FSA within Colorado. You can also sign up for our Gov Delivery. It's a monthly newsletter that we send out for all USDA agencies, so all of the ones that are on this call. And you can get updates on what's going on each month, deadlines, things to be looking out for, disaster events, etc. And then if you're also looking to get more involved within your USDA, we do have something called county committees. It's basically an advisory board where producers can give their opinions, their expertise on some program specifics such as plant dates or prices. They can also help make determinations on certain applications. That was my quick overview of FSA, but I'm actually going to pass it over to NRCS.
All right, thank you, Liz. So as Liz had said, this is going to be a quick overview of NRCS and what we do. And so it won't go over all the details in our programs and our services, but at least you'll kind of know what we have to offer. And I kind of want to start out telling you that the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, we have a proud history of American farmers and ranchers and forest landowners. We were started in the 1930s with the dust blowing days, and that's where we really got started in saving our natural resources in soil, and that's why we started out as the Soil Conservation Service. We support conservation primarily on private lands through one-on-one personal relationships with our producers and our landowners. We are voluntary. We are not normally, I guess I just forgot the word, but regulatory. We are not regulatory at all. We are a voluntary agency. It's up to you if you want to work with us, or anybody in your communities want to work with us, you know, and we really look at how it is to meet your unique conservation goals and business goals. So we're really trying to address climate change and ensure long-term sustainability for our environment and our agricultural community. We're focused on farmers, especially those underserved, socially disadvantaged, and for people in upcoming markets like organics or the urban farm. What's unique about NRCS is that we're made up of all different kinds of employees with specialties in the scientists, like a soil scientist, a range conservationist, an agronomist, an archaeologist. So we have a lot of expertise, and most people come to NRCS because we have engineers on site as well to help address some of these issues. But also when you walk into an office, you could find other partners there to help you as well, with the conservation districts, Pheasants Forever, CSU, the Wild Turkey Federation. So we have a lot of conservation groups providing assistance as well. Next slide, please. So when we look into some of the natural resources that are important to us, there are over 20 that we do theoretically when we come out to do a farm plan. But here are the major natural resources that are important to us. Soil health. We want to improve and promote resilience and water infiltration, reduce erosion, plant cover crops, build organic matter. Water quality is always a big issue for Colorado. You know, we have the Colorado River that is always striving to reduce salts and make sure we provide quality water going down to the other states as it leaves our states. But we also, you know, look at the sediment and the nutrients and other ways that we are polluting. And then water quantity, even though we are irrigators and people, we don't really have a lot of excess water, but we do want to be conscientious with the water that we do have and make sure that we do a lot of irrigation water management plans, drought management plans, trying to build resilience in our water use and what we have available to us. Then we have wildlife that is definitely an issue for us, and we take very serious about making sure that we protect them and build habitat for them, put in practices like wildlife friendly fencing, and even about planting pollinators. And last but not least on this list is a climate smart agriculture and forestry. And forestry in Colorado is a big deal in climate smart because historically we have a lot of fires and a lot of problems when it comes to forestry items. So climate smart ag is definitely a concern of NRCS, and we have a lot of practices to help address that. Next slide, please. We have different programs. These are all the programs that we have right now. And one unique thing for NRCS is that we have a year-round application season for all programs. Even though we might be funding right now for EQIP, it's still at any time of the year you want to come in and apply for a program. They're always open. So we're going to kind of go through each one of these in the next few slides to give you a more detailed. So I will start with that. So like Liz says, CRP is really housed and administrated by FSA, but NRCS does the technical side of the program, which actually CRP is one of my favorite programs because you really make a difference, especially in the environment when you take cropland and you plant it back to grass and see all the wildlife and everything that it has to offer. But we work together with our sister agency on this. EQIP is our main bread and butter and is our main conservation program that most people know about, because that's where we do a majority of our practices that will be paid for. It's a conservation. Some people say it's a grant program. Well, it's not really a grant program. It's an incentive payment. So EQIP, it gives us the opportunity. We have over 170 different practices in our cost docket to pay on incentive practices like sprinklers or an underground pipeline or a hoop house for urban agriculture. So it really is very broad, and we have a lot of opportunity in EQIP. Next is the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP. It really builds on your existing conservation practice. It is for those operators that are already doing a great job, and it gives you an avenue to collect money for not only what you're doing, but to build on your operation to obtain a higher stewardship level to increase environmental benefits. So once really you start with EQIP, theoretically, we can move into CSP to enhance your operation even more. Next slide, please. So the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program is very exciting for Colorado in that we have about 10 new easements this last year. And it can be easements from restoring wetlands to saving conservation, teaming up with other conservation land groups to conserve our land throughout Colorado, from the mountains to the plains, all over. So it probably gets about 10 to 15 applications a year. But it's definitely something that's out there that people should be interested in. Our Regional Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP, is really to work with our partners to help us expand conservation efforts. And really, it really needs to think outside the box. So it isn't maybe what we have traditionally done in the past, but where we are going in the future. So there's a lot of opportunities for groups. counties, conservation districts to participate in the RCPP. Right now, Colorado has a great RCPP program in the Front Range of Colorado in forestry, trying to thin our forests and make a healthy forest and protect our water sources for Denver Waters, City of Greeley, Fort Collins. So we have about $14 million right now set aside for the RCPP in that area. Next slide, please. And then we have the Conservation Incentive Grants, CIG. They are not housed locally, they are picked nationally. We have the Emergency Watershed Protection Program, which happens when we have a disaster, a flood, a fire, any kind of national events like that. We are able to do cost share programs to protect land and homes and communities. And then we have the watershed rehabilitation. A lot of you might not know that we have over aging dams in our counties and that were put there for water control for flooding. But we are rehabilitation of those, plus helping with other rehabilitation on aging water systems, like with our water districts for large ditch company projects, making sure we get water in the proper locations. Next slide, please. So, as I said earlier, we have about 170 conservation practices available for NRCS programs. We use it on crop management, resource management, range practices, urban agriculture, from low tunnels to high tunnels to anything you can think about that really helps the environment. Each of these conservation practices and standards can be found on our website that spells it all out. We also have conservation tools that you can also find. And we have identified and targeted resources, and even for planning for counties, about you could calculate how many tons of erosion that we will be losing for each field. And also we have a lot of videos on there for how-to guide. And I think that's the last of my slides, isn't it, Liz? Yep, there's my website, just like everybody else. And I actually think if you clicked on one of ours, it probably would guide you to the next one. And I am on time, so I don't get in trouble. So I know that was very fast and it didn't answer all your questions, but like everybody else, I'm here to help you, and you can reach out to me afterwards as well. So thank you for joining us today, and I'm gonna pass it along.
Good afternoon. I'm going to actually share my slides. I have them separately from here. Good news, I have 100 slides. I only have 10. The bad news is I'm such a bad presenter. What would normally take someone 100 slides to put you to sleep, I might be able to do it in 10. But I'll try to make it as interesting as possible and answer any questions you might have. All right, so USDA Rural Development actually is a bunch of groups, and let me show you what those are. Where I actually work is what they call rural business and cooperative systems. So I work on helping to create jobs and add jobs in the local economy, save jobs. The other areas we have a single family housing. They do provide affordable rural housing. We also have community facilities, which works more on the infrastructure. They'll work a lot of times with your towns and local governments. and they have the rural high-speed internet access, which is our rural utilities service. For us, we don't do a lot with agriculture, but we do have two programs that are specific for agriculture, and those are the Rural Energy for America program, which we call REAP, and the Value Added Producer Grant program. And so those are the ones we're going to talk about today. And with that, we're already on slide 4 out of 10, so hopefully you're still with me. Here's where it gets fun. So the Rural Energy for America program, we do fund up to 50% of the total eligible project cost for this program. If you look down at our table down below, the renewable energy systems, they have a minimum grant of $2,500 and a maximum grant. You can get awarded up to $1 million. So that means if you have a project that's $2 million or more, you can get up to $1 million on that one. For the energy efficiency improvements, that maximum is capped at $500,000. And then we'll talk about what those two, entail. But first, let's talk about what's going on with this. We are currently accepting applications for this. They're quarterly competitions. We have a due date of 3/31 for this application period. We have another round on 6/30 where it's due. And then the final one is 9/30/2024. That's for the IRA funds, which is what we're talking about here, the 50%. There may or may not be additional funding come available. We'll have to see what happens, between now and in September. If you do apply, it is a competitive process. And if you are not awarded, you will automatically be moved to the next quarter to compete there as well. It'll also go to a national pooling if we don't have state funds first. And then that'll last through 9/30/2024. If there is additional funding in the next year, in the next fiscal year for us, you would have to reapply if you wanted to apply, and there is availability for funds on December 31st, 2024. So automatically it goes each quarter. You'll get re-enrolled in it if you are not selected, and then that's good through the end of the fiscal year. And these are available for both rural small businesses, which has to be in a rural community, or for egg producers, which could be anywhere. And the egg producers, that's someone that has more than 50% of their revenue comes from agricultural production. And the two, we're talking about energy efficiency. Those can be for any efficiency repairs, that you might be looking at doing. That's included but not limited to windows, doors, lighting, insulation, HVAC. So what we're looking at there is we're going to take a look at your historical energy use. You're going to have an audit from a third party outside that's going to take a look at it. They'll provide you with what kind of savings you're going to have, and then we'll look at it from that standpoint. For the renewable energy system, we have the solar, wind, hydroelectric, the digesters, biomass, and geothermal. A lot of the agricultural production we've been seeing have been putting in the solar side, been putting it on there on the corners. And that's been a pretty popular program for us, a grant for us. You're allowed to receive both an energy efficiency and a renewable energy in one fiscal year. If you have an active application, again, that'll roll. If you don't get selected the first quarter, it'll keep going until the end of the fiscal year. If you are interested in looking more at our REAP program, or if you just want to call someone, the two individuals that are specializing in this is Cindy Chadwick and Kathleen Spain. I have their contact information here. You can also submit to our centralized email system, sm.co.reap@usda.gov. That's constantly monitored and should ensure that you get an answer a little quicker. The Value Added Producer Grant, we're currently accepting applications for that as well. That's typically done once annually. So this next deadline is on April 11th, 2024, if you're going through grants.gov, or the 16th if you're sending these in directly. There's two different grants. One's a planning grant and one's a working capital grant. Now, the planning grant is a max of 75,000. Working capital is 250,000. So, I mean, everyone might think, let's start with a working capital. It's more money. The working capital grant does require you to submit a feasibility study and a business plan. So a lot of times, what makes more sense is to go through the planning grant first, which is either going to help pay for that feasibility study, and then the next year you can apply for a working capital grant, or to help with your business plans as well. I have a list of eligible applicants, and independent producers, agricultural farmers, majority controlled producer. This program does help out with beginning farmers. The REAP does as well, but this one's slightly different in the scoring. They actually give some extra points for beginning farmers. I might want to mention on all of our grants, they are reimbursement grants. So you have to pay for it first, and then you submit for reimbursement. So you don't get the funds up front. That's something that's important to remember. For this value-added producer grant, it's a one-to-one match, and you have to be able to show that you have the matching funds. Same with the REAP. For the value-added producer grant, you can show eligible in-kind contributions. That's not available for REAP. So no in-kind contributions are allowable on the REAP, but it is for the value-added. One thing to note is equipment is not going to be eligible under VAPG. Under REAP, the equipment is. All right, here's where it gets fun. There's 5 what we call value added. So first is a change in physical state. So if you produce a raw commodity and you use at least 50% of that towards this value added, then it would be eligible. Some examples: if you have a dairy farm, you have milk, and you want to start doing the cheese yourself, then it's a value added. Same with wheat to flour, or maybe lemons to lemonade. Second is a production that enhances the value of the agricultural commodity. The easiest one to understand on that is if you currently are producing and now you want to get the organic stamp of approval and you can go organic, then we will help towards getting that organic side of it. The physical segregation is when you're segregating the raw commodity from other varieties of the same commodity. So if you have non-GMO corn, but you want to start doing GMO corn, then it'd help on the physical segregation of those, so that when you're during production and harvesting, and the continued separation of that during the processing and marketing. The renewable energy is when you're looking for a generated byproduct of the raw commodity. The best ones to think of that are biodigesters, biofuels, and the like. The energy generation from wind, solar, geothermal, or hydro are not eligible for the VAPG, just biodigesters, biofuel, and such. The last is locally produced agricultural food product. So if you want to start marketing locally and selling locally, we can help with that. And it's a marketing and distribution side of it. And what we consider local is within 400 miles of the product's origin. If you're already selling locally, then expansion of that market is eligible. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And again, that's within 400 miles. The contacts for that would be Bill Chester and Keisha Westcott. And if you have specific questions, that maybe I didn't cover, I would recommend reaching out to them. And just like that, we hit our 10 slides. If you can't get in touch with anyone, you can always contact me. I'll try to help facilitate that as well.
Thanks, John. I'm Jeff Darrow with the Risk Management Agency. Like I said earlier in introductions, my particular office is in Topeka, Kansas, but we do cover the region of Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. And what I'm going to do here today is really just a brief overview of what the heck the Risk Management Agency is and what we do. Because my understanding that a lot of you folks are going to be new to agriculture on this series, and we find that generally when we speak to producers that haven't been in the business for a while, so to speak, they don't really recognize who we are. So in the spirit of that, this is Risk Management Agency and what we do. We are a public-private partnership. We don't sell crop insurance. We administer crop insurance. There are 13 companies, we call them approved insurance providers, that actually sell crop insurance. As a producer, as a farmer, as a rancher, your contact with us is almost always going to be through a crop insurance agent. So you'll want to seek one of those out so that they can explain in depth and in detail, what your options are for whatever your operation is, size, whatever your plans are for your operation. All right, so this is the way that the RMA is broken down. As I mentioned, the Topeka Regional Office right there in the middle covers Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado. We do have 9 sister offices spread out across the country. So every state, every county, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Alaska, it's all covered by us. What the individual offices do is we try to tailor the crop insurance program to work with regional realities and regional situations. As you can imagine, I'll just use corn as an example. That's a pretty major crop across the great majority of the country. But raising corn in Iowa or Illinois or Eastern Colorado or Arkansas is all very different. We've got different precipitation profiles. We've got different climates. We've got a lot of different things going on. So these individual offices spend the great majority of our time trying to tailor those crop insurance programs to best meet the needs of producers in our region. One of the first things that I'm going to talk about is, what crop insurance is and how it works. We've got what we call the insurance cycle here at RMA. And you start with the blue arrow there kind of in the upper right-hand corner. And that's basically where you're sitting down with your crop insurance agent and saying, hey, this is what my operation is. I want to grow these crops during the year. And your crop insurance agent will be able to advise you on what programs are available. And more importantly, what kind of dates and deadlines might be involved in getting that set up. I know there's a slide later on at the end of this presentation where everyone has important dates and deadlines listed for their particular agency. And for us, that first deadline on this slide, the sales closing date, is the date at which you have to have set up and purchased crop insurance for it to be in effect for that crop year. So, for example, in Colorado, for the Risk Management Agency, we have a whole slew of what we call spring crops that are going to have a sales closing date of March 15th. So that's just around the corner. So if you're intending to plant corn or grain sorghum or sunflowers, whole farm revenue protection is another whole animal that we have as far as insurance product. All of those things are going to have to be done by March 15th. So if that's something you're interested in, you're going to really want to get in contact with a crop insurance agent as quickly as possible to get the wheels rolling so that you can get that set up. Excuse me. So generally, crop insurance covers a lot of what we call causes of loss, adverse weather, which includes frost, heat, drought, hail, flooding, wind, fire, tornadoes, all sorts of things. We don't have a lot of earthquakes or volcanic activity here in the Colorado area, but that just gives you an idea of the breadth of causes of loss that we cover. There are a few things that we don't cover. Part of the idea of entering into a crop insurance contract with us or with your crop insurance company is, we're going to cover you for naturally occurring losses that you don't have any control over. But the expectation is you're going to do everything that you can to bring the crop along. So for instance, if you are going to insure under an irrigated practice, you need to be sure that you apply the appropriate amount of irrigation at the right times to enable that crop to have its best chance at producing the desired yield. So as a general rule, crop insurance is not going to cover negligence or crop abandonment, poor management, farming practices. If you're not taking care of a crop the way that the experts suggest that you should, or the culturally accepted ways, if folks in your region deal with it in a certain way and you break away from that and it causes you yield, that's not something that's going to be covered by crop insurance. We don't cover for the failure or breakdown of irrigation equipment or facilities, chemical drift. If your neighbor is spraying their crops with Roundup and you don't have Roundup ready corn planted and your corn suffers, your only remedy in that situation would be to directly litigate with that neighbor and try to get, some sort of satisfaction that route. Crop insurance is not going to cover that sort of loss. This is a graphic that's a few years old, but it still stands pretty accurate as these things haven't changed much in the last 10 or 15 years. Almost a little over half of the indemnities that we pay out in a given year is due to drought conditions. That can be not enough precipitation, hot winds that knocks crops over that they just can't recover from. About a quarter, not quite a quarter of our losses are paid out to excess moisture conditions. That could be, ponding and flooding, rivers jumping their banks, things like that, or just way too much precipitation over a short period of time, and the crop just washes out. In our region, hail is only 6%, but that adds up quite a bit. It is a significant player in the causes of loss that we pay out indemnities on. And then price is the other one that probably is a little bit bigger than it looks here. It's only 5% of overall payments, but that's probably because it's a secondary cause of loss on a lot of these crop losses that we pay out on an annual basis. So we've got several plans of insurance at RMA that you can choose from to cover your crop. We've got yield protection, which, just like it sounds, it's very concerned with the actual yield of the crop that's produced on the ground that you're growing it on. To trigger a loss for a yield protection program, all you have to do is have a reduction in the amount of crop that's produced on your fields relative to what you're insured for. So if you get hit by drought, disease, hail, and you just don't grow the yield that you anticipated, yield protection would pay for that. Now, revenue protection is a little bit different in that you're really insuring the revenue that you would gain from selling that crop. As we all know, the farming industry, the farming community is a pretty price-sensitive environment. There's a lot of volatility. Commodity prices go up and down, it seems, almost on a daily basis. And revenue protection is really a great way to protect the revenue that you expect to generate by growing the crops that you're growing and selling. So if you have a banner year and a bumper crop and you've got excess yield and you're really excited about what happened during the year agriculturally, well, unfortunately, a lot of other folks in your area probably had similar conditions and probably grew the same increased crop size, which may reduce in a lower price. And if that happens, revenue protection will help you because it's going to guarantee a certain amount of proceeds from the selling of that crop, even if the price declines. So revenue protection is a program that probably 80% of our producers utilize. It becomes more and more popular every year. We've had it for, 10 or 15 years now. And it seems like it grows by double digits compared to yield protection just about every year. We do have a couple of other programs that operate very differently. We've got whole farm revenue protection, which is also a revenue program, but is very different from these other crops in that you don't have a specific yield for certain crops that we're looking at. You don't have practices necessarily, but it's everything in your operation rolled into one. And it's purely the guarantee of the revenue that you get from selling those crops. It's based off of taxes. It utilizes Schedule 1040Fs that you would file as you sell your product over the course of the year. It can be pretty complicated compared to revenue and yield protection, so I'm not going to go into depth on it, but I want you to know that it exists. And when you do talk to a crop insurance agent, if you are what we call a highly diversified producer, if you've got 5 or 6 different crops that you grow and each of them is more than 10% of what you're selling, whole farm revenue may be the right thing for you. We also do have a couple of livestock programs, livestock margin protections, and livestock revenue protection. Once again, those operate a little bit differently because livestock is different than row crops, which is where our main area of expertise lies. But later on in this series of presentations, I'll have a much longer discussion about whole farm and the livestock programs and just exactly how those can work for you. I'm going to pass it back to Liz here in a moment, but I do want to point out those March 15th sales closing dates that I mentioned earlier. If crop insurance is something that you feel like you are interested in and it's something that you want to pursue, I would go to the RMA website. In fact, I've got it pulled up here. I'm going to see if I can share my screen real quickly because this is pretty important. So I'm trying to share the website for rma.usda.gov. And this is a piece of our website. It's located under this tools. If you just go to the rma.usda.gov website, this is the opening screen that you'll see. But you'll want to click on the tools tab up here and the agent locator. And I've mentioned a couple of times how important it is to find a local crop insurance agent to discuss your needs and your plans for the year so that you can figure out what crop insurance programs work best for you. And the best way to find that agent is this tool right here, this agent locator. So you just click on the link, find local insurance agents with the locator, and it will give you I believe it's a drill down type of situation. So you can say I'm in Greeley. And in just a couple of moments, it's going to bring up several options of crop insurance agents that are close to the location you put in. And you can contact these folks and figure out who they sell crop insurance for, what kind of services they offer, what kind of consultation they might suggest to best meet your needs for the coming crop year. So having shared that, I will hand this back over to Liz. I think I might have accidentally closed the other presentation, Liz, so I apologize for that, but thanks for the opportunity to speak.
No worries. Thanks, Jeff. So for a couple program deadlines, FSA aligns very well with RMA on the March 15th deadline. We have your ARC PLC enrollment deadline is on the 15th. All of our non-insured crop disaster assistance or our NAP sign up deadline is also March 15th. And our spring crop reporting deadline, a lot of producers will go to RMA and then they'll come to FSA, vice versa, before March 15th and get all of their information handled. NRCS doesn't have any upcoming deadlines. I did notice that RD has their Rural Business Development Grant Program application deadline on February 28th. Are there any other deadlines any of our agencies can think of coming up soon?
Yeah, I just I put them out at the presentation, but for the REAP, it's quarterly, so March 31st, and then June 30th, September 30th. And then the VAPG has got an April 11th due date for those submitting through grants.gov and April 16th for those who are submitting at either at a local office or by email to us.
Perfect. Thanks, John. This is a slide for all of our future webinar dates and topics that are coming up for this year. These are not set in stone, they could change, but we are going to generally follow this schedule. Please note that we are working on a way to get everyone to be registered for each webinar. As of right now, you are not registered for the webinar series, just for this section. We'll send you all an email or something of the sort letting you know when the next one is available, and then you can register, not register, totally up to you. If you'd rather us register for you, let us know and we can do that as well. Like I said, these are the upcoming topics and their respective dates. These are the contacts for all of the presentators for today. Again, we have FSA, NRCS, RD, and RMA. I'm going to wait just a minute on the slide in case anyone's taking pictures. But like we said at the beginning, we are going to be sending out the slides. We're not quite sure on the avenue we're going to be sending it, if it's going to be through email or link or whatever it may be. But you will get the slides after the presentation for both us and RD. There are also a couple of PDFs that we might include as well with some more information. And last but not least, some questions. We do have a couple questions that already came through the chat. I know that a lot of them have been answered, but I'm going to go through and have us answer them again in case no one has access to the chat. The first one is Kara asking if it's going to be recorded. Yes, it will be recorded and we'll send it out. There's another question asking about the current country census for ag data, if it's available for the public. As far as I'm aware, the most current one is the 2022 ag census data. NASS, or the National Agricultural Statistics Service, does release different reports periodically. I did include their web address in the chat. We can also do a Q&A after so other people have the resources, but that's the most current full census that I'm aware of. I know they are working on a new one. There is another question on if NRCS programs are mutually exclusive. For example, if they have pasture land that's currently in a CRP grasslands contract, but they also want to apply for EQIP or CSR or CSP, can they do that? Some programs you can do FSA and NRCS depending on the program. For CRP specifically, you cannot have an active EQIP or CSP contract while also having a CRP contract. So keep that in mind. When you're applying for one or the other, usually your office will ask you if you have EQIP, CSP, or CRP before they help you sign up. You will be ineligible if you try to sign up for both. We do have a question asking how the presentation will be shared. I let them know that we aren't entirely sure on how we're going to send it out yet, if it's going to be email. I will have it listed on FSA's website with all the resources per webinar. The other agencies might do something similar. If you other agencies are going to do something similar, maybe drop your website link or YouTube link or whatever may be in there where you might want to put this information so our people have it. Let's see here. We have a question for RD wondering if locally produced has to be value added or something like raw mushrooms. John, I know you answered it in the chat. Do you also want to expand a little bit on that as well?
Oh, I was hoping you'd give me a chance to talk again. Thank you. Yeah, I think if you already produced it before, and you're looking to go locally produced, that's fine. Again, if you're already selling locally, you can also have a market expansion. So if you have another area that's considered local and you already are selling local, that should be eligible as well.
Perfect. Thanks, John. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. Are there any other questions for any of the agencies in general about the webinar series? Feel free to unmute yourselves if you're able, or to put it in the chat as well. But if there are no more questions, that's all we have for this afternoon. Thanks everyone for joining. It's been great having you, and we hope that all of this information was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future on future webinars. Have a great afternoon, everyone.